Hey, welcome back, it's NukaViolet here. If you're new to my channel, this is where I show and talk about all things camp related. Everything I'm about to show you has been merged, so make sure you pay close attention so you don't miss it. In this video, I'm going to teach you every technique that I know of so that you can replicate them in your own builds. I'll also show lots of examples from my builds and other builders. We'll cover the basics first and then go into some more advanced methods. We'll also touch on reasons why you might get stuck while merging. So whether you've been merging for years or you've just now heard of it, you'll probably get some useful information from this video. So what exactly is merging in Fallout 76? It's one of two things. The first is taking one or more items and combining them together so the game thinks that it's only one object. It also means objects can intersect with each other. For example, I have an elevated foundation here in this bedroom and it has two chairs merged into it. The game thinks these three things are only one object. So if I pick up this foundation, it also picks up the chairs with it. Merging can be really complicated or fairly simple. It depends on how many layers there are and how many different types of merging techniques you use. Now that you know what merging is, why would you want to merge in the first place? If you use merging while building, you're essentially unlocking all new camp items. It encourages creativity because you have to think a little deeper about what something could be instead of what it actually is. And when you're finished, your camp has a completely unique look that you and others can appreciate. I know when I walk into a camp that has some really clever merges, I get even more excited to build myself. It makes the game more enjoyable and unexpected. Now let's dive into the fundamentals of merging. Proper order is everything. It's the difference between a successful merge and a merge that makes you never want to try merging again. So to create this custom bathroom, I had to first merge the toilet into this fireplace, and then take the fireplace and merge that into the foundation. If I had done this in the wrong order, then it wouldn't have worked out the way that I wanted it to. And to better show you what I mean by this, we're going to go over the 6 different merge types. These are what all of the merging techniques are based off of. The first merge type is sinking. You can do this by using the pressure plate, terrain, or foundations. This is definitely my most used merge type. You want to use this technique to hide part of the object, whether it's in another object, in the ground, or both. Let's start off by sinking a light into this dark TV aquarium. This is the before and after. The first thing you'll need is the TV aquarium and then your light source. I picked the candle because it fits in it perfectly. Then you want to grab your pressure plate. Set it down and then select it and move it slightly to activate it. Grab your candle and place it on top of the TV aquarium. Then you're going to pick up the aquarium and move it over on top of the pressure plate. As soon as you set it down, it's going to automatically sink it. Now the pressure plate only sinks a little bit at a time, so you'll have to do this until it sinks all the way down till you can't see it anymore. Now we're going to take this a step further and do a double merge. To do this, I'm just going to take my TV aquarium and place it on top of the dresser. Then move the dresser over to the pressure plate and repeat the first steps. I'm going to sink it down until it looks like it wouldn't have any legs. This is what it looks like placed inside of my camp at night. I definitely recommend doing this merge type first because I think it's the most user-friendly. Next, I'm going to show you how to sink an object using the terrain. First, you want to grab your statue and the monument. Then you're going to place your statue on top of the monument and far enough forward so that when it sinks down, you'll still be able to see it. Then you want to select the monument and drag it across the terrain until you see it dip down. This is an area that will allow you to sync the object. Right before you deselect the object, you'll see that there's a little silhouette that's left behind. I like to call this the object ghost. I use this as a reference point for how far the object is going to sink down. And then you're just going to repeat this step until the statue sinks down to where you want it to be. One thing to always keep in mind is that the object that started on the bottom of the merge is the one that you want to use to move everything. Otherwise, the merge will just break apart. Next, we're covering how to sync an object using a foundation. Now, there are two ways to do this. You can use the terrain or you can use another foundation. The way I initially learned how to do foundation merging was through another YouTuber named Logan RTX. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. But basically what you want to do is bring your foundation over to a hill. And you're going to sink it into the hill until it's about halfway in. This method will also work with a small hill as well. The only difference is it's going to sink down a little bit less than if it were a larger hill. Then you're going to get as close to the foundation as you can without stepping onto it. Before you select it, you want to make sure that you're looking downward at it, basically so you don't see the top of the foundation. The trickiest part about this merge is the positioning of yourself. If you're off by like 1/4 of an inch, it's not going to work. And then once you find that perfect spot, you'll know that you're doing it right because when you let go of the foundation, it looks like it just pops back up. That's how I could tell that the merge is working without even going around to see if my object has sunk down. If you're having a lot of trouble with this merge, then the next method might actually be a little easier for you. I was made aware of this foundation merge when I saw a tutorial on Lucy Jane Plays channel. And she learned it from a builder named Mayajima. And he told me that he learned it with a few of his friends. It's a really versatile method, so you should definitely learn how to do it this way. The first step is to place your object on a foundation, and then you're going to take another foundation and snap it to that one. Then you want to walk up to the foundation that the object is on. Make sure you're looking down for this. Then select the foundation and pull it towards the ground. You should see the object ghost as you're pulling it downwards. Then when you let go, it'll snap back into place and the object will be sunken down into the foundation. If it's not working for you, then you might just be a little bit too close or too far away. One of the cool things about this method is that it's not terrain dependent like the last one. You can do this on a totally flat surface or a really steep hill. It doesn't really seem to make too big of a difference. Now that you know how to do all the different types of sinking methods, I'm going to show you how to do the next one, and that is destroying. To do this, you'll need either the flamethrower, the spikeboard trap, or use PvP. The purpose of this method is to temporarily delete an object so that you can put another one in its place. This essentially combines them together. I'm going to show you how to make this spooky reaper for your camp using this method. The first thing you're going to need is a wall, and I like to use this wooden one because when you destroy it, it leaves a nice open area. Then you'll need the Mothman cultist tree trunk, the scarecrow, and of course the flamethrower. Grab your flamethrower and bring it over to the wall. You're going to destroy it so that you can leave room for the objects that are going to be placed inside of it. Now grab that tree trunk and bring it over to the wall. You want to push it as far back as it'll go before it turns red. Then grab that flamethrower again and destroy it. You're going to repeat this step with the scarecrow and try to center it as much as you want so that it looks like it's properly lined up. Once it all looks good, you're going to repair everything. Now you're ready for the final touch. Go in and grab your mounted feral ghoul head and place it under the hood so that it looks like it's the scarecrow's head. And then you're finished. Your creepy Reaper is ready for your Halloween camp. And if you want to take this look even further, like how I did in my haunted house, you can add some lights in the wall behind him. And if you're not sure about how to do the lighting, you're in luck because I have an entire tutorial dedicated to camp lighting. And in that tutorial, I go over everything you need to know. So make sure you check that one out. Learning how to merge with the flamethrower will open up a lot more merging opportunities. It's used hand in hand with a lot of other merges, so I definitely recommend that you learn how to use it. Every once in a while, you'll come across an object that won't destroy using the flamethrower, or the hitboxes are just in a weird location and it makes it hard to use the flamethrower. In cases like this, you can opt to use the spike trap. You can even use the spike trap to completely hide your shelter from other players, although the shelter icon will still show up on the map at your camp. Sometimes you might want to get an object up high off the ground. And to do this, you're going to use reverse merging. You'll need either the camp module or a foundation. Reverse merging is the opposite of a syncing merge. Instead of the objects coming together, they're going to get pushed apart. I learned this trick from another YouTuber named Khalil Smooth. I'm going to teach you how to do this reverse merge by recreating one of the signs that I made in my Mothman build. The first thing you're going to need is the Order of Mystery build set, and this was from Season 7 scoreboard. And if you don't have this build set, you can just use any of the half walls that have the little window. The first thing you're going to need is the flamethrower. In order to reach this top wall to destroy it, you're going to have to stack some objects. And I like to use these cabinets. They seem to be the perfect height. After you destroy these two walls, you want to grab your Mothman sign. For this to work, we're going to need an object for the sign to reverse merge off of. So I find the best thing to use in this scenario is the little rug. Grab your Mothman sign and place it on the rug. Then grab your rug and bring it over to your camp module. As soon as you drop it on the module, it's going to automatically bump it up. And you want to keep doing this repetitively until it's high enough to reach your desired height. For this window, you want to sync it about 23 times. Once you have the right height, bring it over to your doorway and try to center it in as much as possible. You want to sync this right in between the walls so that it's kind of sandwiched in there. Once everything is lined up, then all you have to do is repair the wall. Depending on how far back you placed your sign, the wings will either show through the window or they won't. And remember to add lights to this so you can draw more attention to it. You can even swap out the light colors to create different moods. Now let's say you're completely maxed out on your budget and you can't even place one more item. Instead of using a rug to place on the foundation, you can use the foundation itself. That's how I got all of these stash boxes floating above the ground. This merge is identical to the one I showed you earlier with the two foundations. The only difference is instead of pulling it down, you're going to pull the foundation up. Now this bookshelf looks like it's hovering above the ground. One of the coolest parts of this method is being able to push objects so far off that they look like they're not attached to the foundation. This is the perfect method for adding clutter outside of your camp. It's also great for sinking really large objects closer to the ground. You can create some really interesting looks with ordinary objects by sinking them into the ground. And as an example, I'm going to take this outhouse and merge it into the ground. Now we're going to follow those same steps that we did before, where you pull the object down to get it to the level that you want. And I'm going to pull it down until I can only see the very top of the outhouse. One big difference here is that when I get the outhouse to the level that I want it to be, I'm going to start pulling it to the left. Now if you pull it too far, it's not going to work because you're going to be out of the snapping range. You can see that the outhouse has now been pushed to the left. I'm going to keep pulling the foundation to the left until it gets further and further away. Sometimes the foundation will turn red, and this means that your position is not correct. You're either too close or too far away. Here I rotated the foundation to the left so that I could see the outhouse a little bit better. In order to get that outhouse closer to me, I need to pull the foundation towards me. So by doing this, I'm pulling the outhouse further from the foundation. Then I'm going to grab my foundation and bring it over to where I want to place it. And you can see this gives it a really cool effect. It's like a piece of scrap metal just sitting outside of my camp. Here's an example of this exact method being used. This is the object that I sunk into the ground. It just looks like an old tank, but it's actually the weapons workbench. These are the kind of details that you can add to your camp by using this technique. And if this seems way too complicated for you, then you could try the easiest merge of them all, and that is flipping. You can do this merge with a wall or a roof. The reason you would use this merge is to hide part of an object. First, let me show you how to do it using a wall. Make sure your wall is switched to a doorway. Then you're going to need the bone shelf. Grab your shelf and move it over to the doorway. Now push it back or forwards depending on how much you want it to show through the wall. Then once you have it all lined up looking the way that you want it, you just flip your doorway back to a wall. I use wall flipping quite a bit, but I usually will pair it with the sinking merge and the flamer merge. This shelf is actually two shelves merged together, and I use the wall flip to get rid of the background on the shelf. On that note, I put together a little cheat sheet on some of these shelves. So if you're going to use the pressure plate to merge items into shelves, I've counted the number of times that you have to press the item onto the pressure plate to get it sitting properly on the shelves. These are just a few of the ones that I really like to use in my builds. For the white shelving unit, you want to merge your first item down 14 times, the second one 15 times, and the third one 16 times. And now for the roof flip. It basically works the same way as the wall flip, you're just using the roof piece. The first thing you want to do is select your light. And then you want to flip your roof piece to a slant, and this can also be a corner piece. Then you're going to re-snap your light onto the roof. Once you get it placed how you want it, you're going to flip it back to a flat roof, and then your light will be closer to the ceiling. This is an excellent way to create different looks by having different length lights. So you could use the same light, but now you'll have one that's a little bit longer and it creates a different look. I use this technique in almost every single one of my builds. I even use it to completely hide lights. But you can still see the light that it's emitting, which makes it perfect for all types of applications. While we're on the topic of easy merges, our next one is object-specific merging. For this example, we're going to use the metal shelf and the wavy Willard plushie. And there are other objects that also work like this. You can see that this little plushie just goes straight into this shelf. I don't have to use the flamer and I don't have to merge anything. To show you a little bit better, I'm just going to stack these guys on top of each other and move them back to the shelf. And to take this a step further, you can take another object and put it on top of the plushies, and then move those all back into the shelf. And if you pick the properly sized objects, you can make it look like they're stacked on each individual shelf. And another one of those magical objects are the stove and the sheep squatch plushie. You can stack another plushie on top of that one and then easily just put it inside of the stove. Now we're going to move on to the sixth merge type, and that is blueprints. For this, you can use walls, roofs, or foundations. And if you want to know how to merge some of the pre-existing structures that we have, definitely go check out Vladministrator Gaming channel. He has several tutorials on how to do this using blueprints. Creating some of the structural blueprints is very time consuming. So in an effort to keep this video relatively short, I'm going to direct you to another YouTuber that has an entire video dedicated to this, and his name is Mr. Church. The gist of a blueprint merge is to trick the game into thinking those objects should be together. This is especially true for the foundations. As far as I'm aware, there's no other way to get foundations to merge together besides using this method. Before you dive into all these complicated merges, I wanted to mention these little merges that you could do. They make your build seem a little bit more realistic. I like to call these micro merges. An example of this would be merging two carpets together to make one larger carpet. Doing these little merges can actually make a really big impact, especially if you're doing a lot of them. Like being able to push your chair all the way under the table, or being able to put your cat on a chair so it doesn't look like it's hovering above it. Let's say you really like these red candles, but you're not a fan of the skull underneath. One thing you can do is slightly sink them under a table so that you isolate just the part that you like. This is a great way to get into merging, especially if you don't have these crazy elaborate ideas. It's a way to enhance your camp by using subtle merges. Now that you know how to do all the merges, the next step would be to use multiple merges to make one item. To show you an example of this, we're going to replicate one of the guitar displays in my music store. The first thing you're going to need is the guitar. We're going to try to make this look like it's hanging on the wall and not leaning against a chair. If you bring your chair over to the side of the foundation, you can see it turns red and it won't let you place it. That's because the game thinks the chair no longer has support. So in order to trick the game into thinking it does have support, we're going to place the chair on a rug. This will allow us to move the chair all the way over to the edge exactly where we want it. I'm just going to show you 2 of these for an example, but feel free to use more. Once everything is lined up and looking good, you're going to walk straight up to the foundation, just like before. Make sure there's one other foundation snapped to that foundation, and then you're going to pull it straight down. This is going to sink those guitars and the rugs into the foundation. You're going to do this as many times as you need to until you get the height that you want. We're going to customize this even more by using different objects. For this one, you're going to also need the guitar on the rug. And then I use 2 different stash boxes. One is the military safe and the other is the steel box. The first thing you're going to do is place your rug and guitar on top of the safe. And you want to make it so that when it sinks down, the neck of the guitar isn't going to be merged into the safe. It's still going to be visible. Then you're going to sink your guitar into the safe using the pressure plate. And to hide those wheels, we're going to sink the safe into the metal box. Once you have that all sunken in, you're going to bring it over to the side of the foundation. You want this overhanging enough so that when it merges down, you're still going to see a little sliver of the safe. Then you're going to use the foundation merge to sink it as far as you want it to go. And when you're finished, you have a totally custom display. You can pretty much use whatever object you want as the background, and it'll just give it different looks. Like here I used the back of the Nuka-Cola machine and it looks a little bit more retro. Let's do a slightly more complicated merge using the mannequin. This is going to be similar to the one that I did in my Robco build. One thing I like about using mannequins is that you can display things that you wouldn't normally be able to display. For example, backpacks or even certain headwear. To start this merge, you're going to need a mannequin and a dresser. The first thing you want to do is place your mannequin on top of the dresser and make sure that it's not going to be poking out of the sides or the front. So it could be centered or a little bit off center like mine. It just depends on how you want it to be displayed. Then you're going to bring it over to the pressure plate and sink it down as far as you want it to go. To make it just look like a torso, you're going to have to sink it really low. Once you have it placed, you'll notice that when you bring it over to the foundation, it's gonna turn red and it's not gonna let you place it. That's because the mannequin's legs are further down than the original object it was placed into. The workaround for this is going to be a coffee table. It's the perfect height so that the mannequin legs aren't going through the foundation. You want to pick up your dresser and place it right on the edge of the coffee table. You can see if you go a little bit too far and the legs go through the coffee table, then it's not going to merge. Then you want to take your coffee table and move it where you want it to sink into the foundation. This will be its permanent location. Then we need to sink all of this into the foundation. You can do this using the foundation snapping or the foundation terrain merge. For this one, I'm just going to use the terrain merge. And once you're done, it should look something like this. I love to use the mannequins because you can customize them even after everything is merged. So no matter what theme your camp is, you can always switch your mannequin to match. One thing I wanted to briefly touch on is merge quality. And I don't mean merging specific objects together. I'm talking about the positioning of your objects so that when they merge down, it's a clean merge. For example, let's say I want to make it look like a deathclaw is climbing out of a well. This is a prime example of a bad merge. And this merge isn't as good as it could be because I didn't properly line things up, and you can see his hand is going through the well wall. This doesn't really help sell the idea that it's climbing out. A better version of this merge would be this one. In this attempt, I was actively thinking about where those claws were going to be placed, and how much I needed to sink the deathclaw in so that it would look realistic. When you think a little deeper about how your objects are going to merge together, not only does it make it more aesthetically pleasing, but it can make your build seem more cohesive as well. Almost like the objects were made for each other. There are a few things that I wanted to mention before we go into the featured builders. These tips will give you a little bit more help when you're putting together your merges. Sometimes certain objects just do not want to place. A perfect example is this robot display case. When I try to place it on the stove, it turns red and it won't let me place it on top. So the workaround for this is to use a conduit. It's kind of similar to the merge earlier where we had to use the rug for the guitars. The conduit works the same way. It provides support no matter where you're putting it. So if the rugs aren't working, definitely try the conduit. Whenever you can, try to get a double use out of your one merge. And what I mean by that is being able to see your merge in two different rooms. For example, I have a fireplace merged into this wall. I used it in the bathroom as a shelf, but when you see it from the living room, it looks like a fireplace. I merged these consoles into the wall for my research center, but if you look at the other side of the wall in the bedroom, they double as a display shelf. Not only are you customizing your build by doing this, but you're also saving on budget because you're using one item for two different rooms. Always try to match your merges with the theme of your build. This will further captivate your visitors because as they're walking through, it seems like your build tells more of a story instead of just being random merges. For example, if I built an ice palace, I would want to pick items that seem to fit into that cold atmosphere. Just by choosing items with the right color can simulate cold, like using things that are blue and white. Here I hung up some tattered curtains because I thought they looked like icicles. Then I destroyed this defense wall because it resembled ice forming on the sides. In my mask maker build, I merged a well into the floor. And not because I wanted water, it's because I thought it resembled a tool that was used to make masks. This merge fit perfectly into this build theme. So whether you're building for a radiation detox bar or a modern house, you can definitely come up with some creative merges to fit into your build theme. Isolate what you want to show. I took my ally's backpack and put it through the wall because I wanted just a backpack on the floor in my school build. By merging this red chair into the couch, I created a throw pillow. Maybe the top of a tire could be a serving platter. I like to look at the top of objects because when you sink them down, that's essentially what's isolated. For example, this tire becomes just a chain on the ground, and this statue just becomes an axle. This will give you a whole new perspective on looking at the camp objects. There's so many different variations of merging that you can create a lot of different looks just by using a couple of objects. Completely hiding certain objects can have its benefits too. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't like seeing the huge Protectron at my camp. One way you can still reap the benefits from it but not see it is to sink it under the ground. You can also do this with the symptomatic to build under the ground. One of the most beneficial things to hide is the generator. This is especially true if you don't have the little ones unlocked. They take up a lot of space, and this is the perfect way to hide it. One thing I always do in every single one of my builds is hide lights. When you hide the physical light and you just see the illumination of it, it gives your build a really cool atmosphere. You can highlight specific objects or even just draw attention to certain textures. It's definitely one of the most underrated things in camp building. Now let's get even more ideas from the featured camp builders. And don't forget to visit all these camp builders' YouTube channels. First up, we have Lanthar bringing us this overpopulated duck pond. This was made using the double foundation merge. If I randomly stumbled upon this camp, I would definitely have a huge smile on my face, because who wouldn't want to see 5,000 ducks in a tiny little pond? I even like how Lanthar added this little canoe seat as an extra detail. This build is super simple, yet very memorable, which is why I wanted to add it to this lineup. Next we have Lucy Jane Plays. She specializes in building homes. I'm really loving the kitchens that she's come out with recently. There are a few different types of merges going on here, but I think it still looks super clean. These are the kind of features that you can build in your own home, but only by using multiple merges, which is why it's important to learn more than one type of merge. Don't forget to check out her full builds on her channel. Next up, we have two builders from the Uranium Fever crew. The first one is BadNotions with his Fallout 76 race car. If you ever wonder if there's a limit on how many items you can merge together, this is the perfect example. The only limit that you have is your camp budget, and some builders are stretching this as far as possible. The amount of effort and detail put into this race car is just amazing. This type of build is only possible by the builder, of course, but also because of merging. Our next build was done by Drago. And talk about immersive merges. These builds look like they would be straight out of the game. I love how Drago merged everything together so that it would look really natural. Even the characters are interacting with the merges seamlessly. I even like the idea of having these little customized vendor wagons. Each one is so unique and has its own characteristics. Next we have two builds by Vapid Valentine. She built this really detailed cottage out of stones and painstakingly merged them together to look more realistic. And these stones are spread throughout the camp. You can see them in the walkway and around the pond in the back. This is a perfect example of using merges that fit into your build theme. Everything flows nicely together and nothing seems out of place. Her next build is a modern house, and there are a lot of merges in this one, but I want to draw your attention specifically to her kitchen. She used a lot of different objects to create this kitchen island. This kitchen looks a lot different than Lucy Jane Play's kitchen. They both utilized merging to create custom kitchens that reflect their own individual styles. Speaking of kitchens, I have one more to show you, and it's a build by Mr. Church. His builds are known for their scrappy, lore-friendly, semi-technical style, but this one is a bit different. He utilized many merges and built everything around this billboard. One of my favorite aspects of this build are the custom hanging lights, which he built using the reverse merge technique. I also really like his take on this custom entertainment center. It's definitely untraditional, but looks very unique with the objects that he used. This little car hidden in the garage was also a really great detail to add in. So whether you just want to make some cute little bowls for your pet kitty or a custom merge for a photo opportunity, merging is for everyone, and it doesn't matter what your skill level is. If you're as much as a fan of Fallout as I am, then you'll probably like my Fallout-inspired designs, which you could find on my website at thegraphicschick.com. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.